We got a great question about sources today in the Legacy Virtual Users Group, and we've already received a number of really great responses. I think they can be broken down into two main groups. People either put their sources by location or by subject matter. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do, but I would encourage you to give some thought to how it is you work. We've talked about this before. It's your workflow. It's what's intuitive to you. So realize that the master source is there for you to have all of the information that you want in about your source, but how you find it and how you use it is up to you. So let's take a look. In the first instance, we're going to take a quick look at my master sources. And what you'll see is that I have 140 listed in this program that I'm working with. And the first thing you notice is what shows up, and it's book. And that's because I list all of my master sources by type. And so book would be what comes first for me. And if I were to scroll through, we might have church record, correspondence, directory, military records, passenger lists, vital statistics. So I don't go in and take a look at birth certificate, death certificate. I put everything in vital statistics, so I always remember to look there first. And then I go through, and certainly for the United States, everything is done according to the state and then the localities. But I take a look by state, and they're all grouped together. So if I'm looking for any vital statistics in the state of Washington, I know I'm going to find them here. I don't have to hope that I remember to put them in Washington first for a location. I don't have to look and see if something's a transcript or the actual vital statistic. Perhaps it's certificates, perhaps it's index. Anything like that helps me. Also keep in mind that this source list name is the name that you choose. It's not the name that shows up in your actual footnote or endnote citation. And the way you can see this is by taking a look at the actual citation. Because I've gone in and done the citation, I also have the subsequent citation and the bibliography if I wanted to look through it to see how it appears. But for my purposes, I know to look it up under vital statistics, the state. Once I find the state, I look through what I need. This is just the way that my workflow is processed, and I'll show you another way where that's very interesting to see things. It works well for newspapers for me, and it also works really well, if we find it, with censuses. So I have all of my censuses in date order so that it's easy to find, and this is how I've listed the 1840 federal census, and you can come down and take a look to see what the source is going to look like. Now on some of these I may not have used the census yet. And that's because I put all of my sources in for the U.S. Census before I even started citing it to anything. And the reason that I did this was because I wanted to make sure that it was consistent and ready to go once I did find my censuses. So I had looked up, depending on what I was using, Ancestry.com here, to find what the citation should look like, both with evidence explained and Ancestry's beginning citations, so that I knew that what I was looking at and so that they all agree with each other. And that's the kind of thing you can do in advance so that you have your information together about all of your sources. And you'll notice that I use the source writer, and that's why I have that little dot here. There are a couple things that I've carried over that I need to update that are not in source writer. Whether you use source writer or you write up the sources yourself, just make sure that you're consistent. Now let's take a look at this in practice. And if I were to come over to the items that I have all of my censuses here. I also use the date that the census was enumerated, the beginning date, and so all of those dates will agree. If I'm looking to find censuses for everyone in my database, that's the 1870 census, I can easily find it by knowing these dates. I list my location, I put my information in, and I'll just show you really quickly what that looks like. I go ahead and enter the information, even though it's also in the source citation, with the household members and information that I'm going to want about them, as well as in these brackets here, if I have a question, I'm wondering what these two children are doing in the Cannell household. And then if we were to look at the source, it shows you the 1870 census, and I have filled in the information including the page, the image, the dwelling, and the family, as well as the household here. So I can easily find it. Same thing is going to work when you have your newspapers, and I can easily see what I'm looking at. It's an obituary, and it comes from a newspaper. The census is telling me which census. Again, your source list name is the name you're using, not the actual citation. As you see here, it's the 1910 U.S. Census. So that's just something to give you an example of what mine look like and why I find it easy to find anything that I'm looking for by the example of what I'm looking. The source type is what I would refer to it as. Is it a census? Is it a newspaper? Is it a vital statistic? Other people start out using the location, and the only thing that concerns me with that is it's really hard for me to see sometimes if I had already put that document in as something else. If I know it's a vital statistic and then I break it down by birth, marriage, death, that's much easier for me than if I were to go back and say, did I have a birth certificate? So however it is that you put this information together, what you might want to do is after you've worked on your master list, you might want to go through it and you might want to print it out. And that's something that you can do and take a look at your master sources. So the way that you would go about doing that is to go into Options, Print, and then take a look at your source citation report and include what you want. You could say all sources. You just perhaps only want a master source and citation summaries, but if you wanted the master sources, you could list that. Your options, choose anything that you want, and then let's take a look at the preview. It puts your report together and it tells you all of the source citation reports that you've used. And it's going to go through 8 pages and simply list your information so that you can take a look at it to see if anything's wrong or if there's anything that you would want to update. Take the time to work on your sources at the beginning, and then when you need them, certainly in the case of censuses and any major records you're working with, you'll have them at your disposal to easily cite them. I hope that helps. And we'll see you back here next week with another Tuesday's tip.